Greetings, fellow travelers through time. Settle in, find your focus, or let these ancient whispers guide you into a restful state. Tonight, we journey to a forgotten corner of India, where granite hills hold secrets etched into their very skin, stories of a people whose lives were intertwined with the land, the beasts, and the very rocks that sang to them. Prepare to uncover a civilization that mastered both art and sound, leaving behind a legacy that was lost to memory, only to re-emerge centuries later. If you find yourself captivated by these echoes from the deep past, consider leaving a like, sharing this journey, and letting us know your thoughts in the comments. Now let the story unfold. Sounds of a distant, resonating gong, slowly fading into ambient wind and subtle, crackling fire. Welcome, wanderers, to another journey through the mists of time. Settle in. Let the whispers of the past envelop you. For tonight we delve into a mystery, a forgotten symphony etched into stone, lost for over a century, and only recently reawakened. We're going to a place where ancient rhythms still echo, a landscape carved not just by nature, but by the hands and beliefs of people who lived 4,000 years ago. We are venturing into the heart of Karnataka, India, to a site known as Kupgal. Imagine, if you will, standing on a sun-baked granitic hill, the air thick with the scent of dry earth and ancient secrets. You are surrounded by thousands of carvings, petroglyphs, etched into the dark rock faces, a vast, open-air gallery stretching back to the Neolithic, perhaps even to the Old Stone Age. This isn't just a collection of images. It's a living archive, a direct line to the minds of people who saw the world through different eyes. But what makes Kupgal truly extraordinary, beyond its sheer volume of ancient art, is something even more profound, more audible. It's a series of rock formations riddled with unusual depressions that, when struck with boulders, produce loud, resonant, gong-like musical tones. These aren't just rocks. They're instruments, played by hands long turned to dust, carrying echoes of rituals and ceremonies that unfolded on this very ground millennia ago. The very hills hummed with purpose, with sound, with life. This incredible sight, these musical rocks, were first reported way back in 1892. Think about that for a moment. The late 19th century, a time when the world was rapidly changing, but these ancient whispers were still being heard, still being documented. An official name Fawcett penned a report for the Asiatic Quarterly Review, even including hand sketches by a Sewell. The renowned R.B. Foote, a pioneering figure in Indian archaeology, also mentioned it in his seminal 1916 work on India's prehistoric and protohistoric antiquities. And then, as if swallowed by the earth itself, Kupgal vanished from the collective memory of researchers. For decades, it became a ghost on the archaeological map, a tantalizing reference in old texts. But its physical location, its tangible presence, became a riddle. Subsequent explorers, armed with these early accounts, tried to retrace the steps, to find the singing stones, but to no avail. Brief descriptions surfaced from time to time, from scholars like Subarov, Gordon, and Padaya, but the site itself remained stubbornly lost. A few old photographs, taken in the 19th century, also existed, images sent to the Madras Museum and the Royal Anthropological Institute. But time, that relentless thief, blurred and faded them, or saw them simply misplaced. It wasn't until 2002, more than a century after its initial discovery, that Dr. Nicole Boyven, in collaboration with Ravi Korasetter from Karnataka University, finally, dramatically, rediscovered Kupgal. Imagine the thrill, the sense of unearthing a lost world, a lost voice. To understand Kupgal, we need to understand its setting. We're in the Bellary district of mid-eastern Karnataka, about 5 kilometers northeast of the town of Bellary. This region is an archaeological treasure trove, but often under various names. You might hear Singanakalu, you might hear Kupgal. They refer to local villages, and they're intertwined with the ancient landscape. Here, the remnants of the Neolithic period, the New Stone Age, cling to the tops and slopes of these distinctive granitic hills. As you descend from these ancient heights, you find the traces of later eras, the megalithic, the Iron Age, and early historical periods, spread across the surrounding plains. Of the many sites in this rich tapestry, the largest, and arguably the most significant, crowns the biggest and northernmost of these granitic hills. The British, during their colonial rule, called it Peacock Hill, a name that sometimes surfaces in earlier literature. The locals, in their straightforward wisdom, simply know it as Higher Gutta, which in the beautiful Kannada language simply means Big Hill. But for most archaeological scholarship, this grand peak is known as Kupgal Hill, named after a nearby village, even though the village of Serivaram is actually closer. Recent, meticulous research indicates that the main period of Neolithic occupation on this specific hilltop occurred between 400 and 3,300 years ago. Think about that time frame. Almost 4 millennia of human activity, of human expression, etched into the very fabric of the landscape. Kupgal Hill itself is a commanding presence, a formidable granite formation boasting several peaks. A large dolerite trap dike, a massive geological intrusion of dark, dense rock, slices dramatically along its axis. It's along this very dike that the petroglyphs, these incredible rock carvings, are found. They span different eras, from the Neolithic right up to the modern day, bruised or engraved into the dark, resilient rock. But the true concentration, the heart of this ancient art gallery, lies where the dike dramatically emerges across the upper northern peak of the hill. It's here that the story of Kupgal truly begins to sing. The rediscovery of Kupgal wasn't just a geographical triumph. It was a re-engagement with a crucial, yet often overlooked, chapter in Indian history, the South Indian Neolithic. While this period might be later in absolute date than the Proto-Harappan Neolithic found further north, it holds a special fascination for researchers. Unlike its counterparts in Baluchistan or Afghanistan, which share more similarities with the Neolithic cultures of Southwest Asia, the South Indian Neolithic boasts a distinctively Indian character. We see a unique crop package, a profound emphasis on cattle pastoralism, and perhaps most strikingly, a singular form of ritual. This ritual involved the burning of vast quantities of cow dung, a practice so prevalent and enduring that it led to the formation of enormous ash mounds, some reaching an astonishing 30 feet high. These ash mounds are not merely refuse. They are monumental testaments to a spiritual and agricultural practice unlike anything else found anywhere else in the world during that time. Despite the profound wealth of archaeological insights offered by the South Indian Neolithic, it has historically received disproportionately less attention from South Asian archaeologists. This imbalance is slowly being rectified, however, with a new wave of excavation and survey projects aiming to systematically unravel the many facets of this fascinating archaeological entity. And sites like Kupgal are at the very heart of this renewed focus. Dating ancient rock art, especially in a region as rich and complex as South India, has always presented a formidable challenge. The traditional methods are often fraught with difficulty. However, researchers have begun to piece together a rough, chronological sequence for the rock art by ingeniously integrating various strands of evidence. They consider artistic style and the methods used to create the images, the content of the rock art itself, what it depicts, what stories it tells, and its proximity to archaeological sites whose periods are already known. These detailed studies now allow archaeologists to distinguish Neolithic rock art from the art of other periods. The Neolithic work stands out with its distinctive style, its recurring subjects, its specific methods of production, and its unique weathering characteristics. Crucially, these features are consistently found in association with known Neolithic archaeological sites. It's like finding a signature, a distinct hand that only could belong to a specific era. When you look closely at the petroglyphs of Kupgal, a remarkable pattern emerges. Many of the motifs depict cattle, specifically the long-horned, humpback type, known as Bos indicus, which is endemic to southern India. These aren't just crude drawings. They're dynamic, often powerful representations. Alongside these majestic beasts, we find human-like figures. Sometimes they stand alone, sometimes they are accompanied by cattle, perhaps guiding them, herding them. Intriguingly, some of these human figures are depicted with what appear to be chains, or armed with bows and arrows. Dr. Boivin, whose work has been so instrumental in the rediscovery and understanding of Kupgal, suggests that the predominantly masculine nature of these engravings hints that the artists were likely men, deeply involved in the essential task of herding cattle. These motifs were created by bruising the rocks, a technique where the darker outer layer of the rock is carefully abraded away, presumably with a harder stone implement, to reveal the lighter rock beneath. It was a painstaking process, requiring skill, patience, and often an incredible feat of daring. Some of these images are located in such precariously difficult-to-reach spots that the ancient artists must have had to suspend themselves from overhangs, defying gravity, to create their enduring art. Imagine the dedication, the sheer will to leave such a lasting mark. And then we return to the sound, to the ancient music. The local communities have always known them, referring to certain formations as the musical rocks. These are not just any rocks. They are granite giants, sculpted by nature but amplified by human intention. They possess peculiar depressions, natural hollows, or carefully carved indentations that, when struck with boulders, unleash those loud, resonant, gong-like musical tones. In many ancient cultures, percussion played, and continues to play, a vital role in rituals, in ceremonies, in connecting with the spiritual world. It is a powerful theory, a compelling suggestion, that these musical rocks of Kupgal were an integral part of the rituals performed by the people of this region, echoing through the valleys and across the hillsides, calling to the heavens, celebrating the earth, and perhaps communicating with the spirits of the cattle they so deeply revered. But this incredible legacy, this profound connection to our ancient past, is not without its threats. Commercial quarrying in the area today poses a serious, immediate danger to these invaluable motifs. Sections of Kupgal Hill, these sacred ancient spaces, have already been irrevocably destroyed by the relentless extraction of granite. A rock shelter just to the north of Kupgal Hill, which held even older rock art, has been partially lost to this destructive industry. Dr. Nicole Boivin, the very expert who brought Kupgal back into the light, has voiced deep fears. Without significant government interest and urgent intervention, this unparalleled rock art, these musical stones, these echoes of an ancient world, may be completely destroyed, lost forever, not to the mists of time, but to the harsh realities of modern commerce. It is a chilling thought, isn't it? That after millennia of enduring the elements, after surviving a century of being lost to researchers, these profound testaments to human ingenuity and spirituality could be erased in a matter of years. Kupgal is more than just an archaeological site. It is a profound connection to the rhythmic pulse of our ancestors, a place where the stones themselves hold memories and sing their ancient songs. It is a place that reminds us that history isn't just about dates and battles. It's about the deep, resonant, and often beautiful tapestry of human experience. Sounds of the distant gong returning, fading slowly, leaving only ambient wind and subtle, crackling fire. Welcome back, everyone. Settle in, find your comfortable spot, and let's journey further into the silent whispers of the past. Last time, we began to uncover the enigmatic rock art of Kupgal, these ancient soundscapes carved into the very fabric of the earth. Today, we're going to delve deeper to understand the world that birthed these incredible creations, to explore the lives and beliefs of the people who left us these echoes from a vanished time. Our focus today is the South Indian Neolithic period, a chapter in human history that, while immensely rich and utterly fascinating, has for far too long been overlooked by the grand narrative. Imagine, for a moment, a time between roughly 4,000 and 3,300 years ago. This isn't the familiar territory of the ancient empires we often discuss, but a world just as vibrant, just as complex, and in many ways, even more uniquely Indian. The Kupgal petroglyphs, these thousands of intricate carvings etched into the dark granite of Bellary district, are more than just pretty pictures on a rock. They are windows into this particular Neolithic world. While the site was first reported way back in 1892, and even mentioned by the legendary Foote in his 1916 volume on India's prehistoric antiquities, it subsequently slipped into obscurity. For decades, it was a lost treasure, mentioned in hushed tones by scholars but inaccessible. It took the dedicated efforts of researchers in the early 21st century to rediscover this incredible place, to bring its silent narratives back into the light. This rediscovery wasn't just about finding old carvings. It was about re-establishing a connection to a profoundly significant, yet almost forgotten segment of our human story. Now, where exactly are we talking about? We're in the Bellary district of mid-eastern Karnataka, roughly 5 kilometers northeast of the town of Bellary itself. This region is a veritable gold mine of archaeological sites, though they often appear in academic literature under a confusing array of names. But the names Sanganakalu and Kupgal, 2 local villages, tend to surface most frequently. Here, the story of human occupation is written in layers, with Neolithic remains clinging to the tops and slopes of majestic granitic hills, while the traces of later periods, the megalithic Iron Age, the early historic, and beyond, spread across the surrounding plains. Of all these sites, the largest and arguably most significant sits atop the biggest and northernmost of these granitic hills. The British, with their penchant for evocative names, dubbed it Peacock Hill during the colonial period. Locals, with a more straightforward approach, simply call it Higher Gutta, which in the local Kannada language translates quite literally to Big Hill. But for most archaeologists, and certainly for our purposes, it's known as Kupgal Hill, after a nearby village, even though the village of Serivaram is actually closer. Recent archaeological work has meticulously dated the peak of Neolithic occupation on this imposing hilltop to that period we mentioned earlier, between 430–300 years ago. Kupgal Hill itself is a striking geological feature. It's a large, multi-peaked granitic formation, bisected by a prominent dolerite trap dike. This dike, a long, vertical intrusion of darker rock, acts like a natural canvas. Along its entire length, from a Neolithic period right up to modern times, you can find petroglyphs, images bruised or engraved into the dark surfaces. But the most stunning concentration of this ancient rock art is found where the dike emerges across the upper northern peak of the hill, as if nature itself had provided the perfect stage for these ancient artists. Let's pause for a moment to consider the sheer effort involved in these rediscovery efforts. The initial report by Fawcett in 1892, with its brief summary and tantalizing hand sketches by Sewell, was groundbreaking. But then, for reasons we can only speculate about, the site became lost. Later explorers, armed with these early accounts, simply couldn't relocate it. Brief descriptions by scholars like Subarov, Gordon, and Padaya kept the flame of memory alive, but the physical site remained stubbornly elusive. Even photographs taken in the 19th century, incredibly rare for the time, suffered a similar fate. Many were lost or allowed to fade. Fortunately, some of Fawcett's photographs, sent to the Royal Anthropological Institute, were re-photographed just before they succumbed to time, offering us a glimpse of what was once almost forgotten. It wasn't until 2002 when Dr. Nicole Boyven, in collaboration with Ravi Korasetter of Karnataka University, undertook a comprehensive study, publishing fresh photographs and detailed analyses, that the Kupgal petroglyphs truly re-entered the archaeological consciousness. This wasn't just a rediscovery. It was a reclamation of a vital piece of the past. Now, to truly appreciate Kupgal, we must understand the broader context of the South Indian Neolithic. While it's chronologically later than the Proto-Harappan Neolithic of the early 3rd to 1st millennium BC, In fact, it actually overlaps with the mature phase of the mighty Harappan civilization. It holds a special fascination for researchers. Why? Because unlike the Neolithic cultures of Baluchistan and eastern Afghanistan, which share many similarities with their neighbors in Southwest Asia, the South Indian Neolithic is distinctly Indian. It boasts a uniquely Indian crop package, an unmistakable emphasis on cattle pastoralism, and perhaps most strikingly, a distinctive form of ritual that involved the burning of vast quantities of cow dung. This ritual, in particular, is a hallmark of the South Indian Neolithic. It led to the formation of enormous ash mounds, some towering up to 30 feet high, scattered across the landscape. Imagine these ancient people engaging in ceremonies where the burning of cow dung was not merely a practical act, but a profound spiritual one, leaving behind these monumental heaps of ash as enduring testaments to their beliefs. These ash mounds are not just piles of waste. They are archaeological gold mines, offering invaluable insights into the daily lives, agricultural practices, and spiritual worlds of these ancient communities. Despite this wealth of unique archaeological information, the South Indian Neolithic has, regrettably, received disproportionately less attention from South Asian archaeologists than it deserves. It's a quiet corner of history, brimming with untold stories. Thankfully, this situation has been improving in recent years, with a new wave of excavation and survey projects specifically aimed at systematically studying the many facets of this fascinating archaeological entity. And sites like Kupgal are at the heart of this renewed interest. Dating ancient rock art is always a challenge, and the South Indian Neolithic art is no exception. It has traditionally been acknowledged as a problematic endeavor. However, by meticulously integrating various strands of evidence, researchers have been able to construct a rough chronological sequence. They consider artistic style and method, the very content of the rock art itself, and its proximity to archaeological sites whose periods are already well established. These studies have allowed archaeologists to distinguish Neolithic rock art from that of other periods. It has its own distinctive style, its own preferred subjects, its own methods of production, and even unique weathering characteristics. Crucially, these features are consistently found in association with archaeological sites known to belong to the Neolithic period, giving us confidence in their ancient origins. So, what exactly do we see in these petroglyphs at Kupgal? Many of the motifs depict cattle, specifically the long-horned, humped-back variety, Bos indicus, so characteristic of southern India. These aren't just crude drawings. They are vibrant, energetic representations of animals that were clearly central to the lives of these people. Alongside the cattle, we find human-like figures. Sometimes they stand alone, sometimes they're intimately accompanied by their bovine companions. Interestingly, some of these human figures are depicted in chains or armed with bows and arrows. Dr. Boyvin, whose work has been so crucial to the rediscovery and understanding of Kupgal, suggests that the predominantly masculine nature of these engravings might indicate that the artists were primarily men, likely deeply involved in the vital practice of herding cattle. The motifs themselves were not carved with sharp tools, but were bruised into the rock, presumably using a stone implement. Imagine the precision, the patience, and the sheer physical effort required to create these images, not by incising, but by repeatedly striking the rock surface to create a lighter, bruised area against the darker stone. What's even more astonishing is that some of these images are in locations that are incredibly difficult to access. To create them, the artists would have had to suspend themselves precariously from overhangs, defying gravity to leave their mark. This speaks volumes about the dedication, the perhaps even spiritual compulsion, behind their artistic endeavors. These weren't just idle doodles. They were creations of profound importance. And then, we come to the musical rocks. The local communities have long known about these extraordinary formations, referring to them as the musical rocks. These are peculiar depressions in the granite that, when struck with boulders, produce incredibly loud, resonant, gong-like musical tones. It's an auditory experience that transports you back in time. In many ancient cultures, percussion played a hugely significant role in rituals. It was a way to connect with the divine, to mark sacred moments, to induce altered states of consciousness. It's highly probable that these unique rock gongs at Kupgal were an integral part of the rituals and ceremonies performed by the ancient people of this region. Imagine the sounds echoing across the hilltops, blending with the chants and the movements of the community, creating a truly immersive and profound experience. But this incredible legacy, these echoes from a vanished world, are now under grave threat. Commercial quarrying in the area poses a serious and imminent danger to the Kupgal petroglyphs and the musical rocks. Sections of the hill, with their irreplaceable ancient art, have already been irrevocably destroyed by the relentless pursuit of granite. A rock shelter just north of Kupgal Hill, which contains even older rock art, has also been partially destroyed. Dr. Nicole Boivin, an expert whose research has brought so much of this site to light, has voiced her profound fears. Without urgent government interest and decisive intervention, this extraordinary rock art, these silent witnesses to millennia of human history, may be entirely obliterated, lost forever to the rumble of machinery. The story of Kupgal, then, is not just a tale of ancient artistry and forgotten rituals. It is also a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the fragile nature of our shared heritage. These petroglyphs, these musical rocks, are more than just archaeological curiosities. They're a direct link to the ingenuity, the beliefs, and the very spirit of people who walked this earth thousands of years ago. Their voices may be silent, but their art, their music, still resonates, if only we take the time to listen. Let us hope that these echoes are preserved, not just for us, but for all the generations yet to come. Next time, we will delve even deeper into the specific art and landscapes of Kupgal Hill, attempting to decipher the hidden meanings and the spiritual significance embedded within these ancient stone canvases. Until then, keep those historical gears turning. Welcome back to Vibing History, where we journey into the echoes of the past, often to find tranquility in forgotten tales. In our last segment, we began to unearth the remarkable story of Kupgal, a place where the very landscape holds whispers of an ancient world. We explored how the serendipitous rediscovery of this site in the early 21st century reconnected us with a legacy that had been lost for decades, a legacy stretching back to the dawn of the Neolithic and perhaps even further into the Old Stone Age. Today, we delve deeper into the heart of Kupgal, focusing on the remarkable artistry etched into its stone canvases and the sacred landscapes that bore witness to these ancient creations. We're going to explore the unique petroglyphs themselves, the enigmatic figures that populate them, and those fascinating musical rocks that reveal a hidden rhythm in this prehistoric world. So, find your comfortable spot, let the ambient sounds settle around you, and prepare to immerse yourself in the art of Kupgal Hill. Our journey takes us to the Bellary district of mid-eastern Karnataka, approximately 5 kilometers northeast of the modern town of Bellary. This region is a veritable treasure trove of archaeological sites, though their names can sometimes be a little confusing in the historical record. You'll often see references to Sanganakalu and Kupgal, 2 local villages, as they frequently mark the locations of significant finds. Here, the remnants of the Neolithic era cluster around the tops and slopes of majestic granitic hills, while the Iron Age, known locally as the Megalithic period, and subsequent historical periods tend to reveal their secrets predominantly in the surrounding plains. Among these many sites, the largest and perhaps most captivating is situated on the grandest and northernmost of these granitic hills. During the British colonial period, it was affectionately known as Peacock Hill, a name that occasionally surfaces in earlier literature. To the locals, however, it's simply Hargutta, which in the beautiful Kannada language simply means Big Hill. Yet, in most archaeological texts, you'll find it referred to as Kupgal Hill after a neighboring village, even if Serivorum happens to be the closest settlement today. Recent archaeological investigations have pinpointed the main period of Neolithic occupation on this very hilltop to a time frame between 430–300 years ago, a truly ancient epoch. Kupgal Hill is a formidable presence, a sprawling granitic formation adorned with several peaks. Running majestically along its axis is a large dolerite trap dike, a geological feature that has become the canvas for millennia of human expression. It's along this very dike that you find petroglyphs from various periods, from the Neolithic all the way up to more recent times. These images, either bruised or engraved into the black rocks, tell a continuous story. A particularly dense concentration of this rock art emerges where the dike breaches the upper northern peak of the hill, as if this specific spot held a special significance for the ancient artists. What makes the story of Kupgal even more compelling, as we touched on last time, is its remarkable rediscovery. The site was initially reported in the Asiatic Quarterly Review back in 1892 by Fawcett, with accompanying hand sketches from Sewell. It even earned a mention in Foote's monumental 1916 volume on the prehistoric and protohistoric antiquities of India. But then, as so often happens with sites of such remote significance, it slipped through the fingers of subsequent explorers. For decades, those who tried to retrace its location were unable to do so. Brief descriptions popped up from time to time, from scholars like Subarov in 1947, Gordon in 1951, and Padaya in 1973, but the physical site itself remained, frustratingly, lost to modern research. Even photographs from the 19th century, apparently taken by Fawcett and sent to institutions like the Madras Museum and the Royal Anthropological Institute, suffered a similar fate. The ones in the Madras Museum either vanished or faded beyond recognition. Thankfully, those held by the RAI were re-photographed before they too succumbed to time and were later published by Gordon in 1951, offering a rare glimpse into this lost world. It wasn't until 2002 that Dr. Nicole Boyven, in collaboration with Ravi Korsetter of Karnataka University, embarked on a comprehensive study of the site. Their work, which included the publication of new photographs, marked only the second time that images of the Kupgal petroglyphs had been brought to light. This rediscovery was not merely an academic footnote. It was a reawakening, a chance to rekindle our understanding of a vital chapter in South Indian prehistory. Now, to truly appreciate the significance of Kupgal's art, we need to understand the broader context of the South Indian Neolithic. While it appeared later than the Proto-Harappan Neolithic of the early 3rd to 1st millennium BC, and actually overlapped with the mature phase of the mighty Harappan civilization, the South Indian Neolithic holds a special fascination for researchers. This is because, unlike the Neolithic cultures of Balochistan and eastern Afghanistan, which shared clear similarities with the neighboring Southwest Asian Neolithic, the South Indian variant presented a distinctively Indian character. It featured a unique crop package, a profound emphasis on cattle pastoralism, and a truly singular form of ritual. This ritual involved the burning of vast quantities of cow dung, a practice that, over centuries, led to the formation of enormous ash mounds, some reaching an astonishing 30 feet in height at various locations. This particular ritual is a unique identifier of the South Indian Neolithic, a cultural signature left directly upon a landscape. Yet, despite the richness and unique aspects of this South Indian Neolithic, it has, for a long time, received disproportionately less attention from South Asian archaeologists. Thankfully, this situation has improved in recent years, with a surge of new excavation and survey projects aimed at systematically studying the many facets of this fascinating archaeological entity. Kupgal is one such site now rightly receiving the attention it deserves. Dating South Indian Neolithic rock art has always been a challenge, a puzzle with many missing pieces. However, by piecing together various strands of evidence, a rough, chronological sequence has begun to emerge. Scholars consider artistic style and method, the content of the rock art itself, and its proximity to archaeological sites of known periods. These careful studies suggest that Neolithic rock art can indeed be distinguished from art of other periods. It possesses a distinctive style, features particular subjects, employs unique methods of production, and exhibits specific weathering characteristics. Crucially, these features are consistently associated with archaeological sites definitively dated to the Neolithic period. And what of the petroglyphs themselves? What stories do these ancient artists tell us? Many of the motifs etched into the rocks depict cattle, specifically the long-horned, humpback type so characteristic of southern India, known scientifically as Bos indicus. These animals were clearly central to the lives of these people, not just as a source of sustenance, but likely as symbols of wealth, power, and perhaps even spiritual significance. Alongside these bovine figures, we find human-like forms, sometimes solitary, sometimes in the company of cattle. A few of these human figures are depicted in chains, or armed with bows and arrows, hinting at narratives of hunting, conflict, or perhaps even ceremonial practices. Dr. Boivin, whose work has been so instrumental in the rediscovery and study of Kupgal, suggests that the predominantly masculine nature of these engravings might indicate that the artists were primarily men, likely involved in the vital task of herding cattle. The motifs themselves were created by bruising the rocks, a technique where a stone implement would have been used to peck and abrade the surface, creating lighter areas against the darker rock. Imagine the patient, painstaking effort involved in this process. And consider this. Some of these images are located in spots so incredibly difficult to reach that the artists would have had to suspend themselves precariously from overhangs to create their masterpieces. This speaks to an extraordinary dedication, perhaps even a sacred intent, behind their work. But beyond the visual art, Kupgal holds an even more profound secret, one that resonates through time: its musical rocks. The local inhabitants have long referred to some of these unique rock formations by this intriguing name. These aren't just ordinary rocks. They feature peculiar depressions which, when struck with boulders, produce loud, resonant, gong-like musical tones. Imagine the scene. The percussive sound echoing across the ancient landscape, a primitive yet powerful melody. In many cultures, percussion plays a vital role in rituals, and it is widely believed that these musical rocks at Kupgal were an integral part of the ceremonies and spiritual life of the people who lived there. These weren't just random sounds. They were deliberate, purposeful, and likely imbued with deep meaning, connecting the earthly realm to something beyond. However, the ancient echoes of Kupgal are now facing a very modern threat. Commercial quarrying in the area poses a serious and immediate danger to these invaluable motifs. Sections of the hill have already been irrevocably damaged by the relentless pursuit of granite. There's even a rock shelter to the north of Kupgal Hill, home to rock art even older than some of the main petroglyphs, that has been partially destroyed. Dr. Nicole Boivin, the expert from the University of Cambridge who has dedicated so much to researching this site, has voiced serious fears. Without immediate government interest and decisive intervention, she warns, the unique rock art of Kupgal may be completely destroyed, silencing these ancient voices forever. It's a sobering thought that something that has endured for millennia could be erased in a matter of years, or even months, by modern industry. The loss would not just be to India, but to the collective heritage of humanity. The petroglyphs and musical rocks of Kupgal offer us an unparalleled window into the minds, beliefs, and daily lives of our ancient ancestors in South India. They are not merely pictures on a rock. They are fragments of their soul, their artistry, and their connection to the land. As we conclude this segment, take a moment to reflect on the stories etched into these stones and the sounds that once reverberated through this ancient landscape. Kupgal is a reminder that history isn't just about dates and events. It's about the deep human need to create, to express, and to connect with the world around us. Let's hope that the calls for its preservation are heard, and that these ancient rhythms continue to resonate for generations to come. Join us next time on Vibing History, as we continue to explore the mysteries and wonders of the ancient world. Until then, keep those historical curiosities alive, and let the whispers of the past guide your contemplation. And so, Our journey through the resonant stones of Kupgal comes to a close for tonight. The whispers of the past continue to beckon, reminding us of the ingenuity and spirit of those who walked this earth millennia ago. I hope this deep dive into the South Indian Neolithic has offered you a moment of peace, a spark of curiosity, or perhaps even guided you to a tranquil slumber. If you enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking this video, sharing it with a fellow history enthusiast, and subscribing for more journeys into the ancient world. Your thoughts are invaluable. What did you find most fascinating about Kupgal? And what forgotten chapter of history should we explore next? Until then, keep vibing with history.